So there's been some updates in regards to the broader picture of Stellar. There's been a review from Denelle and some other key members from Stellar. But if anything, in particular, the Soroban update. Now, Soroban is literally like almost any day now. I got delayed late January, pushed back. I'm cool with that. And even if there's another delay, I still would rather them get it right and then, of course, wrong. And if you're new to this whole thing, again, guys, the key thing is a premier smart contract platform for Stellar, literally onboarding not just like 40 projects, but over 100. I think it was well more than 100. Maybe it's 110, 120 to get a count on it. Let's bring you guys the info of the night in regards to Stellar. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. So we're going to start things off with this Stellar Development Foundation quarterly review, right? It was a quarter four review of 2023. This was published only 8 days ago. And you may be wondering, like, well, what's so significant about this? Well, for one, in this review, you're going to have Executive Director Denelle Dixon, obviously talking about some key things. You're going to have Justice Rice, who's always giving us Soroban updates. And if anything, you're going to hear some other key people here if we're going to watch the whole thing, but we're not, because that whole thing is 48 minutes. I fast forwarded to some of the key areas, and I thought I would share it with you guys. So let's go ahead and present this and share it on the screen. So let's go ahead and play this. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Here we go.
Great. Thank you, Denelle. Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Rice, VP of Ecosystem. I'm here to report on some key network stats and also to give an update on what we've done this quarter to make innovation easy and scalable. Let us start with a look at the numbers. So first, let's check in on network activity and growth. The first metric, total accounts. In Q4, total accounts were at about 7.8 million, which is a 5% increase compared to the same time last year. The second metric, total number of payments. There were 92 million payments compared to 46 million in the same quarter last year. So more payments, more people using the network to make payments. That is what we want to see. The average daily DEX volume this quarter was about 9 million lumens worth per day, which is a decrease from Q4 last year. And total operations count was also down. So operations on Stellar, that's any function that changes the ledger state. So that includes those payments. It also includes those buy and sell orders on the DEX. So the decreases in total operations is likely caused by the decrease in average daily DEX activity. And that can be partially attributed to a drop in non-payment related activity on the network. Essentially, from what we can tell, looking at network activity, a few siloed projects were hitting the DEX pretty hard this time last year, and they eased up over the past few months. I do want to note that when you zoom out, there's still been a ton of network activity overall. In fact, the total number of operations processed on Stellar is now over 14 billion with a B. Also, with the launch of Soroban, you should expect to see new protocols that are being built by the ecosystem that open up new possibilities for liquidity provision and for asset conversion. And so these innovative solutions are likely going to impact some of these stats, maybe even give us some new stats to look at. So stay tuned, 2024. But now let's come back to 2023 Q4 and look at metrics for relevant assets. So we define relevant assets as assets tethered to real financial instruments, so fiat currencies, yen, euro, this kind of thing. Tracking these assets gives us a pretty good indication of how well Stellar is actually doing connecting global financial systems. The on-network transaction volume of relevant assets grew by 337% year over year. That transaction volume includes activity attributable to like a lot of wallets like RTM and Vibrant that are bringing more activity to the network, which is a great thing. In 2023 as a whole, relevant asset transaction volume totaled over $2.5 billion worth, which is about 184% increase compared to 2022. That is a positive growth trend that we've seen year after year for the last few years, and it shows that the network increasingly does connect people to the global financial system. The last set of metrics measure the decentralization of the network. Now, decentralization plays a critical role in the health and success of the network, and so we continue to monitor the number of nodes and the average ledger close times to see how the network is holding up. So first, let's look at the number of tier 1 validator nodes. So these are nodes that are run by organizations that have gained a high level of network trust. They're essential to network health and resilience. Currently, the network has 23 tier 1 validator nodes. And outside of tier 1, the total number of network nodes, according to StellarBeat, which is an independent network explorer that tracks these kinds of things, is 108. Reliably, as expected, ledgers continue to close in a little over 5 seconds, which is excellent to see given the transaction volume, the number of payments we've seen this year move through the network. Okay, next up. Here's a quick reminder of our 2023 roadmap and the 3 building blocks before we jump into each one. This is the last time we'll reference this particular roadmap during our quarterly calls. And right now we're going to turn to building block 1, which is focused on making innovation easy and scalable. It has been the priority for the quarter and for the year. All right, we are getting close to Soroban launch on mainnet. If you've been following our channels over the last couple of weeks, you'll know there have been some recent updates on the timeline after feedback and discussion with the ecosystem. And so rather than just focus only on Q4, we're also going to touch a little bit on what's ahead. Here's where things currently stand. In response to ecosystem feedback about a bug discovered in Stellar Core v20.1.0 last week, which could have affected a very narrow slice of the ecosystem, namely applications that use fee bumps to sponsor Soroban transactions. So in response to that bug, Stellar Network validators proposed postponing the vote to upgrade the Stellar mainnet to Protocol 20 and ultimately opted to. That delay should be pretty brief. In fact, already those validators have proposed a rain date for the upgrade vote, which is February 20th. And operators of network infrastructure are already starting to get ready for it. So here's the new projected timeline. Looks kind of like this. February 2nd, that's tomorrow. Stellar Core 20.2 release, the release candidate will come out. That's the updated software that supports Protocol 20 and fixes that bug. On February 6th, we'll deploy that to the testnet. That requires a testnet reset. So if you use testnet, please take note, there's a testnet reset Tuesday. Make sure you are ready to recreate all your testnet data, all part of the rollout. On February 9th, the Core 20.2 stable release will be ready, and we're going to remind all core operators to grab it as soon as possible. February 20th, validators are planning to vote on the Protocol 20 upgrade. So if a quorum of validators armed for the upgrade, that upgrade happens immediately, thus commencing phase 0. Phase 0, I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. But I just want to note before I do that upgrading the network is not something that SDF does alone, right? Validators, they make their own decisions. It's part of this open source, open participation community. It's a collective ecosystem effort as we progress along the timeline. And so we need your help, we need your participation, and we will continue to communicate with all of you, the ecosystem validators, Stellar fans, Soroban boosters, as we make our way to mainnet. For now, just make sure to check out our blogs from the past week for additional context and details, and definitely see the Protocol 20 upgrade guide for up-to-date info and links to relevant releases.
All right, give me just a second. So there we go. So this next particular part that we're going to get into basically is a little bit more, and glad to bring you guys this Stellar Soroban update, right? It's nice to hear a little bit from the technical side and see specific dates on that roadmap and so on. So this one I've also gone ahead and fast forwarded to some key parts, and basically it's like this: real world assets tokenization. Last night / early this morning, depending on where you're from, I did quite a decent outline, right? I posted it on X, talking about tokenization. I highlighted both Quant and Stellar. And then there was another one which is specifically Stellar. I feel as though that, both of these projects lead the world as far as asset tokenization. And then I also talked about tokenization of securities. And of course, I released that video and even talked about in the live the other night. So that's there. But we need to get back to the topic of, for instance, Stellar. And instead of just hearing it from me, how about hearing it from somebody from obviously Stellar? So yes, I've gone ahead and fast forwarded on this one. Let's go ahead and bring this up as well. And let's got to make sure I'm on the right tab for this. Okay, there we go. Let's pull this up. I think this is the right one. Yep, this is the right one. All right, so if you appreciate the coverage, again, and once again, please smash the like. It does help get the program out to a broader base. All right, here we go.
So we'll keep this up for 2024 as well to ensure that sustainable Stellar uses continue to grow and get the support that they need. Okay, tier one assets. They're a focus area under this building block because we need to ensure we're fostering growth for the most used assets in the world to be represented on Stellar. In Q4, adoption of fiat-backed stablecoin EURC on Stellar continues to grow since going live on the network last quarter, with over 970,000 in circulating supply. Ricardo Bitcoin, the largest exchange in Latin America, also enabled EURC on Stellar for deposits, withdrawals, transfers, and trading. And Stasis, a trailblazer in issuing euro-backed stablecoins, brought the EURS to Stellar in Q4. It's a great example of how we're expanding access to trusted versions of the second most widely used currency in the world on Stellar. In 2023, tokenization on the network reached new heights, with Stellar gaining recognition as a leader. You don't have to take our word for it. Funds managed by institutional players, including Franklin Templeton, WisdomTree, Bitbon, ABN AMRO, which represent tokenized real-world assets like securities, fiat currencies, gold, and more, reached a total market cap of over 340 million last year. Messari stated in its latest crypto thesis that funds on Stellar have grown to be the large plurality of tokenized treasuries and the largest liquid instruments that any Wall Street firm have actually offered on-chain, including stablecoins. Stellar was designed for asset tokenization way back when, and we've seen its features make it an easy choice for issuers to build on and take their assets to market. Those features include like the clawback functionality and other compliance features that regulated entities are going to have to leverage. But I also want to highlight that further to SDF's mission, tokenization on Stellar is providing financial access to new customers in new markets in a new way. People who previously were not able to leverage these tools, they now can. This is what our work is all about. With tokenization, the Stellar network strengths and SDF's mission have converged and taken hold in the real world. Tokenization may have now become a buzzworthy thing because institutional interest and fund sizes are growing and regulatory changes are making room for new opportunities. But once we really start to recognize who these financial tools are reaching that were previously excluded, and we're hoping that we see a lot more of that, what it will do for them and what unforeseen innovations are unlocked, more people will understand that it's a game changer. So I'll be back in a bit, but for now, here's Jordan with a look at what we've achieved in the third building block.
So I'm going to bring you guys to this next particular one, which in my opinion stands out as well. And this is a recent report. It was posted yesterday. Let's go ahead and bring you guys to this. I'm just going to get it primed and ready to go. Get some of that branding back up. So here it is. And yes, look what it says here. So it says 10 years ago. Think about this for a second. The Stellar network began as a decentralized payment network with the infrastructure, features, and tools needed to enable fast, affordable, efficient payments. Hard to believe that Stellar has actually been around that long. I mean, it sounds crazy. You know, some FUDders will basically say like, oh yeah, it's been around this long, still not worth that much. I understand it takes time to get to, you know, some of these things to be fully implemented. The flip of the switch never happened then, right? But we are approaching that finish line. Finish lines do come up, and that's what I'm excited about the most. It says now on the brink of a decade of success, the Stellar Development Foundation's mission of greater access to the financial system is evolving. You saw some of those examples from Denelle, right? When she was giving you that quarter or Q4 report, year in review, so on, right? So by integrating smart contracts, they are revolutionizing their tech stack and paving the way for DeFi on a whole new level, right? Integrating smart contracts. Why do you think we put so much emphasis on Soroban, obviously, right? So they had this whole thing of, you know, open participation, the focus on everyday finance, trustworthy tech stack, Stellar setting the course for an inclusive, sustainable future. So with that said, I want to give you guys some key takeaways in regards to what I presented to you guys tonight. And basically, it's like this. When I got more into this review, and I watched, of course, the whole video, right? I came to the conclusion that even though 10 years ago, the Stellar network began its decentralized payment network for this infrastructure and their key features, I said to myself, you know, there's got to be some key points about this. And if anything, why Stellar's evolution in regards of blockchain and DLT is so significant, and of course what stands out moving forward. Well, here's the significance in regards to the whole greater picture of things for you, a person that's just tuning in, or just a guy that just wants to get more information. So keep in mind, there's about roughly 4 or 5 key things I want to get into. So the significance of all of this is shifting focus. How so? Well, for one, Stellar is expanding beyond its initial mission of fast and affordable payments to tackle the greater financial inclusion. More specifically, through what? DeFi, just like you saw on the previous page from the Twitter post. And of course, its integration. This is significant because DeFi in itself aims to provide financial services to everyone, regardless of location or economic background, right? You've seen the mission of Stellar and some of the statements. It is to serve the people with, that are the unbanked or don't have access. What about technological advancements of all this? What's so significant about that? Well, we know some that are on the surface, but if anything, integrating smart contracts, specifically Soroban, into their tech stack for Stellar is a major step forward. I couldn't agree more. Smart contracts, if you're not aware of it, do enable more complex financial applications and programmability on the network. Financial applications, good example is what we're going to see with more dApps, right? And we've already seen some, especially Wisdom Tree. That was a big deal when we got that update. But this whole thing of programmability on the network, unlocking greater potential for DeFi and, of course, other functionalities. What about the whole thing of open and inclusive approach? Well, for one, Stellar in itself does emphasize the whole notion of open participation. They focus on everyday finance and building a trustworthy, of course, tech stack. Again, back to the reference of the previous tweet. This in itself, this inclusion, I should say, this inclusive approach sets them apart, as in Stellar, from other specific DeFi platforms. And if anything, this can be complex, less accessible to, of course, the average user. What about sustainability? Well, for one, when you look into the bigger picture, the mention of sustainable future suggests that Stellar in itself is very well aware of the environmental concerns surrounding some specific blockchains and even some of their competitors, right? And is committed to finding, of course, solutions. Now, that was some of the significance. What about Stellar just plain moving forward? Listen to this for a second. 3 key things here. The focus on implementation. With Stellar, their commitment to action signifies a move from theoretical possibilities to real-world applications of DeFi, of course, on their platform. And if anything, like I mentioned before, you should see more and more dApps. Say what you want. If you've seen platforms, especially last bull run, that have multiple dApps, those are always the enablers, because if anything, it brings in people that don't even understand anything about blockchain, DLT, and so on, but they do understand, hey, there's this cool app. I'm going to try it out and I'm going to play around with it, and maybe I'll do some things. That means more adoption, and if anything, more money flow. That's a good thing. What about the whole thing of, for instance, creativity? Man, Stellar's been killing it as far as creativity, especially some of the people from the Soroban team, right? Like Anunya, right? She's always bringing, all of us updates. But encouraging user creativity does, in fact, open the door for innovative solutions and use cases, of course, on the specific Stellar network. This can accelerate even more of DeFi growth and, of course, mass adoption. All right, this 3rd key thing moving forward for Stellar. Listen to this. They have this whole thing of a goal-orientated approach. Have you not noticed that? Every single time you see an update in regards to Stellar, you see a roadmap. And with that roadmap, there is a vision of an outcome that needs to be fulfilled. We just saw that earlier on the Stellar segment in regards to Soroban from Justice. That's his name. So this goal-orientated approach in itself for Stellar basically means that they're in fact building a future, a better future. One objective at a time suggests a well-defined strategy and focus on achieving meaningful progress. Now keep in mind, this is where Stellar gets a little bit of the criticism. You know, I've seen people say, Stellar's starting to feel like, you know, Cardano. They take their sweet time. I get that. But if at the same time, if they're focusing on quality and a well-defined strategy with actual purpose for a specific goal, like I've always said, I'd rather have them get it right than getting it wrong. Because as soon as it's wrong, everybody, especially in retail, is going to point that out. Overall, for you, me, and everybody else, Stellar does appear to be strategically positioning itself as a leader in inclusive and sustainable DeFi. Their focus on implementation, openness, and user creativity holds promise for continued growth and the overall impact in the coming years. So with that said, I feel very, very bullish on what Stellar is doing. I like hearing the reports, especially from Denelle and Justice in regards to Soroban. I think February 20th should be pretty darn exciting, especially if they do move forward with this particular, you know, vote. It may get delayed, and if it does, well, look, it's okay. But want to know something? When that goes live, the Soroban mainnet, and we have over 100+ projects, right, that go live, like I've always mentioned before, just like when it comes to the overall scheme of things, when it comes to blockchain DLT, all you have to have is a few of those to do well, and you should see some things. As Corey Bebe mentioned in the comments earlier, I feel as though that Soroban will be a huge boost for Stellar, and that's why we will not stop covering Soroban.